Oh my goodness. I lost Yara because my phone overheated. So that's crazy. Um, but I want to get her back. So let's see if we can get Yara back because we were just talking about all the amazing work that she's doing around voting. So let's see if we can get her back. Here she is.
Okay. Hello,
Oh my
hello.
God, I'm so sorry. So my phone overheated in the sun.
Not a problem. That happens to me every day. Uh,
So you were telling us about your initiative and getting voters
oh,
involved, youngers
yes.
involved.
Yeah, so basically, as a result of midterms, we were able to hold, of course, pre-pandemic, a summit of just young thought leaders in different spaces. So whether they be students or people that are just getting into what it looks like to be socially engaged. But the goal was to form a community and form a way of really sharing information with one another because I think we all have different strong suits and so many of our interests, passions, and concerns intersect on our ballot. And
Yeah.
so I think as we approach this election, a lot of what we aim to do is one, have the website be a resource for people and just be a hub because we've collected so many incredible just partnerships, but also to just continue conversations like these and conversations where like I had the privilege of speaking to Sherilyn Eiffel, who's the president of the Legal Defense Fund, and she has
I
such great
watched that.
insight. Yeah, but I think
Mm-hmm.
things like those, she has such great insight as to the opportunity of voting and what we need to be considering when we approach the ballot.
So, what is giving you hope right now, Yara? Because there's so much to be like concerned about, and people are talking about the census, people are talking about
Mm-hmm.
voting, people are talking about the election, about LGBTQ rights, about women's right to choose. There's like so much happening in the world.
Uh-huh.
And so what's actually giving you hope? What inspires you?
I'd have to say my peer group completely inspires me. Just looking at even the past couple months, the amount of people who have used their personal passions and skills and oriented them towards social justice, seeing all of the artists, all of the people in STEM, all of the people who just overnight became organizers and took on that
Yeah.
responsibility is really inspiring. And then, of course, just as somebody that loves media, I feel like I've turned to so many documentaries, so many of my other favorite movies, even my favorite books in this time. Reading a lot of James Baldwin, per
So
usual.
good.
Nothing new,
So
but
good.
I feel like it really helps reaffirm our space in this movement and knowing that there are generations of people who have invested in this fight for equity and we reap the benefits of their action daily. And it doesn't mean that there's not a ton of work to be done, but it really does help. I call it the term indebted gratitude, of feeling as though so much
Mm.
was done on my behalf, whether I know them personally or not. That on those days in which I wonder why we do this, on those days where it can feel overwhelming, thinking about what is my just personal responsibility for continuing in that legacy.
Yeah. It's one of the reasons I wanted to talk about John Lewis and
Mm-hmm.
Satyagraha is because it is the 55th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act. And so there is
Yes.
a lot of that sense of like people really worked for us to be able to have this right, and how do we express it and use it and like get out there and tell people who we are. Like, and this isn't even
Yes.
about a candidate, right? This isn't even about like any
Mm-hmm.
particular candidate. It's like I think voting is about I'm voting for me. I get out there and I check
Mm-hmm.
certain boxes and certain candidates because I'm doing what's best for me and my community. I think
Mm-hmm.
that is so, so important. I want to thank you so much. You did such beautiful posting about our film, The Fight, and about
I
both
have
voting with
my
the
Know Your
ACLU.
Rights next to me. I have it on my
Yes,
desk.
yes.
And the pocket constitutions are in each family member's room. So
So are we going to lose you to the ACLU? Are you going to stop acting and become one of these badass lawyers at the ACLU from our documentary?
it was literally hearing them speak, which is what when I was like, oh, I better open up that law school application and see what I need to get done. But it was from that moment of listening to some of the very lawyers in the doc where I was like, Oh, they're doing the work that I'd love to do. I've always described what I want to do as being politics adjacent. I have no clue how that looks.
Yeah,
But yeah, I feel as though there's so much opportunity in the world to make impact. And I look at people like organizers. I always point to Patrice Cullors, who I think is such an incredible creative and a community organizer.
yes,
And she
yeah,
points to how you can make policy change no matter where you are in the system.
that's
It
right.
was her organization, Reform LA Jails, that ensured that Los Angeles as a county is pouring more money into mental health care rather than the carceral system and creating supervising committees. But I know, like when you're saying voting for our community, that's what got me so excited to vote in our primary. Was I was like, I know there's this ballot measure and I want to make sure that I'm a part of making this change. And I know you have such a beautiful, extensive community, and I think it's true of so many of us that there are people that we either know personally or in our quote unquote extended family that are affected by these policies. And so it's really impactful to be an empathetic and impassioned voter because you're voting on not only what impacts you, but undoubtedly, if it feels like it doesn't pertain to you, it pertains to somebody in your direct vicinity.
Yeah.
And that's why I think being informed is incredibly important.
I love it. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. I love it. It for me, that's one of the reasons why we produced the fight, right? Like we
Mm-hmm.
could have the fact that we could make a movie about these lawyers who are in the trenches fighting all on all of the fronts where we're getting attacked on human rights by the Trump
Right.
administration. These lawyers are our real life superheroes. And we were like, the idea of bringing their story to all of us, it's incredibly hopeful because I know that when the attacks come from people in power, that there are people who are empowered to take that fight on and to fight
Mm-hmm.
for all of our rights.
Yeah.
Um, do you mind if we take some questions like
No,
from the
let's do
chat
it.
here? So if you guys have questions for me or for Yara, and thank you for chatting about um, nonviolence and nonviolent resistance, which was so important to John Lewis. Again, I believe in, you know, it takes a lot of approaches to make change, but I'm so inspired by the vision of Mahatma Gandhi and then carried on through Dr. King and John Lewis to like find change through peace. I think even
Mm-hmm.
in particular in peace in ourselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like how do I come into this battle in a loving place, like out of love for myself?
Right. And I mean, I think it speaks to the power of the movement. I look at Congressman Lewis's legacy, and I had the honor of interviewing him when I was 16 at the DNC. It's such a surreal moment for me. But knowing that he was 17 when he became seriously engaged in this movement, and
Yeah,
even thinking about these concepts of nonviolence that have been passed down, I know the one thing just as a brown and black community that we've been good at is adapting and innovating on ideas. And I think that's a beautiful example of it. Of I know it's especially come to light as of late that Gandhi was not necessarily considering the black community when in
that's
his
right.
action.
That's
But
right.
then for Dr. King and for Congressman Lewis to be able to take those principles and increasingly expand who's being included in that, I feel like it speaks to the beauty of this movement and of our collective imagination to push past what things are initially meant for to be more inclusive.
I say
Um,
that all the time. Like those first three words of our Constitution, we the people, like they did not have you and I in mind. Women
no.
weren't included in we the people, black folks were not included in we the people, but we know that we are people. We know that
Mm-hmm.
despite the limited vision of the people who
Mm-hmm.
wrote those first three words, the truth, like that's where this idea of seeking truth, the
Yeah.
truth is that we the people means all of us, and so we get to fight for that. We get to
Yeah.
fight to fulfill a dream that was even bigger than our founding fathers.
Right. It's exciting and at times overwhelming, but
Yeah,
I know what is the term for it? Imminent critique when you're holding others up to the ideals that they say they stand for.
yeah, that's right. I'm going to go into questions to see if
Yes.
there's anything here. We just have a couple more moments. Can you tell us more about Push Black? So Push Black is this
Mm-hmm.
amazing organization that works to tell story about Black folks, and through like current news and also historical news, and often linking those ideas together, like who we've been, who we are, just like celebrating the beauty of all of us. So it's an incredible resource. You should follow them. We're raising money for them. Push Black is dope.
It's so exciting to see the donation increase as we
Right?
go.
What's your biggest piece of advice for young voters getting Gen Z excited to vote, Yara?
Hmm. Well, the one thing that I've always said is that I personally feel like so many of my peers are already excited to vote, and it's a matter of how do we then connect them with resources? We know that down ballot voting is going to be so important. And at the same time, it's what we know the least about. I
Mhm.
even voting in my primary, the amount of deep work I had to do to even find some of those names.
Yeah.
Um, and so I think it's really about there are a lot of passionate people, but young people, but how do we then connect them with the resources necessary to guide that passion to say, you are focused on this type of reform? Well, you should be paying attention to your DA race, which is not something that you may necessarily pay attention to. So here's this resource. But I think it's a matter of just ensuring that we have that connection to the information that helps our passions translate into policy.
And for those of you who don't know, I just want to explain when Yara says down ballot races, what she
Yes.
means is like not just the president and the vice president, but really focusing on your local elections, like your sheriff and your school board leaders
Mm-hmm.
and judges, because those are the people that make decisions about our day to day lives in our direct communities. And those races are so, so important. So let's talk about Zimbabwe. There's a lot of Zimbabwe in here, and I know we both
Mm-hmm.
posted about it. It's super important to pay attention what's happening in Zimbabwe right now. There's lots of resources online. Both Yara and I have posted about it, so please tune in. Like we have to be aware of our Black struggles for liberation and freedom all over the world. Um,
Absolutely.
let's see what else. Um, let's see. How does this election feel different than 2016?
Hmm. Well, one immediate thought for me is that I can actually vote in this election. And in 2016, I escorted my parents to the polls, but then that was about the extent of what I could felt like I could do. Um, but I feel like the past 4 years, I've watched so many of my peers turn from people that are, of course, passionate about the world to finding new ways to take action. And I think as much as I wish that the level of community action didn't have to be in response to the loss of life and Black death, I do have to say there's something really powerful about moving into the election after months of strong community action. And I feel like that feels really different because I know last election there was a sentiment of not even thinking that we could possibly even enter a world in which we are living under this administration. And so there was almost a level of casualness to feeling like, well, this was never even a possibility. And I think after seeing that it is a possibility, there are many people that are more adamant about really being active in this election.
Yeah, I think the other thing that's different is like one of the things that's happened on the positive side in the face of this administration, like nobody has been safe. Everybody's
Mm-hmm.
been attacked. Black folks are being attacked. LGBTQ people are being attacked. Women are being attacked. And so I get the sense that it's no longer like our issue over here matters and like our pain is more important than your pain. But there
Right.
really is a sense that like we all have to work toward change together, that if we don't all
Mm-hmm.
do it together, we're not going to get there. Um,
Absolutely.
and sort of understanding that unless that real quote that unless we're all free none of us are free, it
Mm-hmm.
feels like people are really embracing that
Mm-hmm.
for the first time in my lifetime in a very real way. um, well, I just want to thank you for joining us.
No, so happy to be a part of this conversation.
It's
I
really
so
really
just as an
fascinating.
audience member, I always enjoy tuning in, but happy to
Um,
be involved.
somebody asked if Yara and I would do a movie together, and I just want everybody to be reminded that Yara played the young Olivia Pope in
Yeah.
flashback episodes of Scandal. So we haven't yet done a movie together, but we
Mm-hmm.
will. We
Oh,
will.
yes. Let's speak that into existence. I remember that week like it was yesterday. You weren't even shooting and you took the time to come over to say hello and it just meant so much to me.
Well, you're
Um,
so precious, and just even in that moment, I was like, "Who is this extraordinarily talented young woman?" And they're making me look so good by having the younger version of me be so pretty.
just trying to be like you.
So thank you.
No,
Thank you,
but
thank
thank you
you.
so much.
All right, thank you everybody for joining. Thank you so much, Yara.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks, everybody. I will say, as we always do at the end of yoga, namaste. And what I mean is the true meaning of that. The God in me bows to the God in you. The light in me bows to the light in you. Thank you for joining. And we'll do yoga again soon. Bye.